You won't believe what happened to me one quiet night in my neighborhood. A night that started with a simple parking disagreement and ended in complete chaos. It all began when my car was towed at midnight. Yes, towed. No warning, no polite note, just gone. And the person behind it, the infamous HOA Karen, the kind of neighbor who thinks she runs the whole block and won't hesitate to flex her power. I never thought a routine evening could spiral into something so wild, but by the time morning came, the situation had flipped upside down in the most unexpected way. This story is about more than just a car being towed. It's about the tension that builds when neighbors clash, when rules get twisted, and when one person's obsession with control goes too far. HOA disputes can get messy, but what happened after the towing was something nobody saw coming. It's a reminder of how quickly things can escalate and how sometimes standing your ground means facing more than just angry words. I want you to imagine the frustration of waking up, ready to start your day, only to find your car missing and knowing exactly who's responsible. But what if I told you that the next morning the whole story changed in a way I could never have predicted? The very house of the person who had my car towed was suddenly gone. I'll take you through every moment of this roller coaster, sharing the drama, the surprise, and the questions that still haven't been answered. What really happened to her house? And how did it all connect to that midnight towing? Stay with me, because the truth behind this neighborhood nightmare is stranger than fiction, and it's just getting started. To really understand how things got so intense, you have to know a little about the neighborhood and the people in it. This community is usually quiet, the kind where neighbors wave hello and everyone tries to keep things peaceful. But there's always that one person who changes the whole vibe, and in my case, that was Karen. She wasn't just any neighbor. She was the type who took the HOA rules way too seriously. If there was a rule about lawn height, trash cans, or parking, Karen was the self-appointed enforcer. She acted like she owned the place, and honestly, most people just tried to avoid crossing her path. The trouble started when I parked my car in front of my own house one evening. It was legal, and I'd parked there dozens of times before without issue. But Karen had apparently been watching, and that night, she decided to call in a tow truck without even a single warning. The tow happened at midnight, which felt extreme. Why not during the day when I could have moved it? It didn't make sense, and it felt like she was trying to intimidate me. That's when the real drama began. I spent the next morning trying to figure out what had happened to my car and why Karen would go so far. When I finally got some answers, I was shocked. But what happened next turned everything upside down. Karen's house, the one she was so protective of, was suddenly gone. Not empty, not for sale, completely disappeared. No one could explain it. The neighbors were whispering, people were pointing fingers, and rumors started flying fast. I knew there was more to this story than just a car being towed. Something bigger was going on behind the scenes, and I was right in the middle of it. What had triggered this strange turn of events? And was my midnight towing just the beginning? The mystery was far from over. As the days passed, the tension in the neighborhood grew thicker. People were talking about Karen's house disappearing like it was some kind of urban legend. Some said it was a legal issue, maybe a foreclosure or zoning problem, but no official word was ever given. Others whispered that there might have been something more mysterious at play, something no one wanted to admit out loud. It was hard to tell who was telling the truth because everyone seemed to have their own version of the story, and none of it lined up perfectly. Meanwhile, I was still dealing with the fallout from my car being towed. The HOA was acting like they had no responsibility, saying it was just a contractor's decision, but I knew Karen had to be behind it. She had made it clear she didn't want me parking there, and that midnight tow felt like a personal attack. I started digging into HOA rules, trying to find any justification for what happened. But the more I looked, the more it felt like the rules were being twisted to serve Karen's agenda. Adding to the confusion, few other neighbors started coming forward with their own stories. Some had run-ins with Karen over small things: a loud party, a flower bed that wasn't up to code, or a holiday decoration that didn't meet her standards. It seemed like Karen had been building this reputation for years, using her HOA power to control the street. But no one had imagined the drama would escalate to this point, with a car towed in the middle of the night and a house disappearing overnight. On my end, every time I thought I was getting closer to the truth, new questions popped up. Who really called the tow truck? Why did the HOA stay silent? And what was going on with Karen's house that made it vanish so suddenly? I couldn't shake the feeling that all these pieces were connected, and that the midnight towing was just the spark that lit a much bigger fire. The neighborhood was on edge. And so was I. The story wasn't over. Far from it. Every day felt heavier than the last as the mystery around Karen's house and my missing car deepened. I couldn't just sit back and let this slide. Something was clearly wrong, and I needed answers. I started talking to more neighbors, piecing together what little information I could find. Some were scared to speak up, worried about stirring the hornet's nest, while others were frustrated and fed up with how Karen had been running the neighborhood like it was her personal kingdom. Then, out of nowhere, a few strange things began happening. I noticed unfamiliar faces lurking around where Karen's house used to be, people taking pictures, talking in hushed tones, and even a few trucks pulling up late at night. It was like a secret was being buried right in front of everyone's eyes. The HOA remained tight-lipped, dodging every question about Karen's property and refusing to explain the towing incident. At the same time, my own situation got worse. I was dealing with mounting fees from the tow company, and every attempt to get my car back was met with red tape and silence. It felt like the system was stacked against me. The whole ordeal was draining, not just because of the financial hit, but because it was clear this was more than just a parking dispute. It was personal. Rumors spread that Karen's disappearance from the neighborhood wasn't voluntary. Some said there had been legal battles. Others whispered about unexpected inspections or even insurance troubles. None of it was confirmed, but the silence was deafening. Every time I drove past that empty lot, it felt like the calm before a storm, like something big was about to explode and finally bring everything into the light. I was on the edge, caught in a web of suspicion, secrecy, and power plays. With my car still gone and Karen's house vanished without a trace, I knew the next move could change everything. The tension was unbearable, and I couldn't wait to find out what would happen next. Just when I thought things couldn't get any more complicated, the story took a shocking turn that threw everything into question. One morning, as I was going through some old neighborhood documents and messages, I stumbled across a series of emails that weren't meant for me. They were between Karen and someone I'd never expected, the very towing company that had taken my car. The emails showed a secret agreement, almost like a deal worked out behind the scenes to target certain neighbors, including me. It was clear this wasn't just a random towing, it was planned. But that wasn't all. Digging deeper, I discovered there were more than just parking disputes in play. Apparently, Karen had been involved in a long-running battle with the HOA board, and not all of it was about rules or property lines. There were rumors of hidden debts, legal threats, and even attempts to push neighbors out to take control of valuable lots. Suddenly, her house disappearing wasn't just a mystery. It felt like part of a much bigger scheme, something that had been brewing quietly for months, maybe years. The stakes had skyrocketed. This wasn't just about one car or one missing house anymore. It was about power, control, and possibly something illegal happening right under our noses. And me? I was stuck right in the middle, with my car gone, no answers from the HOA, and a neighborhood on edge. Neighbors started watching their backs, some locking doors a little tighter, others whispering about what might come next. The tension wasn't just in my head, it was real and spreading fast. Everyone wondered who would be next. What would happen if this conflict blew wide open? As I pieced it all together, I realized the midnight towing was just the beginning of a story, far darker and more tangled than I ever imagined. And the truth, it was still hiding somewhere in the shadows, waiting to come out if it ever did. The moment everything came crashing down started with a knock on my door late one evening. It was a lawyer representing the HOA, but not with the usual cold formality. This time, they had a file in hand, evidence that blew the whole situation wide open. Turns out, Karen's sudden disappearance and the vanishing of her house weren't as mysterious as everyone thought. The property was tied up in a serious legal investigation involving fraud and zoning violations that forced a swift, court-ordered demolition. No one in the neighborhood was told up front because the HOA and local authorities wanted to keep things quiet until the matter was fully settled. As for my car being towed at midnight, that was part of Karen's last desperate move. She'd secretly arranged the towing to intimidate me and a few others, who had started questioning her actions and digging into her questionable dealings. It was a power play, one final attempt to silence anyone standing in her way. But it backfired. Instead of backing down, it made me dig deeper, which eventually exposed the truth. What shocked everyone even more was that Karen had been under investigation for months. The house wasn't gone by accident or by some strange coincidence. It was torn down legally because of violations she couldn't fix. The HOA had been caught in the middle, trying to protect the neighborhood while navigating the fallout from her actions. The towing was a symptom of a much bigger problem, not the cause. Just when I thought the story had reached its peak, an unexpected twist came. The lawyer handed me a stack of documents showing that Karen wasn't acting alone. There were others involved, including a few high-ranking HOA members. This meant the drama wasn't over. The community's struggle with control and corruption had only just begun, and my midnight towing was just the first chapter in a much bigger fight. The car was finally returned, but the peace in the neighborhood was shattered. And as the sun set on that quiet street, I realized that sometimes standing up to power only uncovers deeper shadows, shadows we still have to face. After the shocking revelations, things in the neighborhood slowly began to change. The HOA held emergency meetings and new leadership was brought in to rebuild trust and transparency. Karen's house lot, now a cleared space, became a symbol of the consequences when power is abused and secrets are kept. For me, getting my car back felt like reclaiming more than just a vehicle. It was about standing up against unfair treatment and not letting intimidation win. Neighbors started opening up, sharing their own stories and frustrations, which led to a stronger sense of community. What had begun as a conflict over parking and petty rules turned into a lesson about accountability and speaking out when something feels wrong. The mystery of Karen's sudden exit and the towing drama reminded everyone that sometimes the biggest battles happen right next door, and that ignoring problems only lets them grow. Looking back, the whole ordeal taught me the importance of knowing your rights, staying calm under pressure, and seeking the truth even when it's uncomfortable. HOA disputes can feel overwhelming, especially when emotions run high. But this experience showed me that fairness and respect are worth fighting for. It also highlighted how crucial it is for communities to communicate openly and hold everyone, including powerful neighbors, accountable. While some questions about the wider involvement in the HOA's hidden conflicts remain, the neighborhood is healing. We're watching closely now, making sure no one takes advantage of their position again. My car towing at midnight was just the start of something bigger, a wake-up call that pushed us all to pay attention. In the end, this story isn't just about a towed car or a missing house. It's about standing firm, seeking justice, and the power of community when people refuse to stay silent. Thanks for sticking with me through this crazy ride. Sometimes, truth really is stranger than fiction.